It was supposed to be just another public event for the Trump family, with cameras flashing and reporters eagerly looking for their next headline. But what no one expected was that Barron Trump, usually quiet and reserved, would steal the spotlight in a way that left everyone stunned. It all started when Melania Trump, graceful as always, stood in front of the media, answering questions with her usual poise. But then, one reporter, clearly looking to stir controversy, crossed a line. With a smug tone and a loaded question, they tried to corner Melania, bringing up old rumors and aiming to humiliate her on a public stage. For a moment, the crowd fell silent. You could almost feel the tension in the air as people waited to see how Melania would respond. But before she could even open her mouth, something unexpected happened. Barron, who had been standing quietly by his mother's side, stepped forward. At just 17, he's often seen as the quiet figure in the background, rarely making public statements or getting involved in the political drama surrounding his family. But this time was different. With a calm but firm voice, Barron addressed the reporter directly. There was no yelling, no dramatic outburst, just a confident, measured response that left the reporter visibly stunned. The crowd murmured in surprise, some even breaking into quiet applause. Barron's words were sharp, but respectful, defending his mother with a maturity that no one saw coming. It wasn't just what he said, but how he said it, showing a side of him that the public had never witnessed before. As the reporter fumbled for a response, it became clear that Barron had turned the tables. What started as an attempt to embarrass Melania had backfired spectacularly, and all eyes were now on her son, who stood tall and unwavering. The moment quickly went viral, with clips spreading across social media, sparking debates and drawing praise from unexpected corners. People were amazed not just by Barron's composure, but by his ability to speak up when it mattered most. But this wasn't just a simple moment of family defense. It hinted at something deeper. Was this a sign that Barron is stepping out of the shadows, ready to carve his own path in the public eye? Or was it a rare, one-time moment where he felt compelled to protect his mother from unfair scrutiny? Whatever the case, this unexpected exchange left everyone talking. And it's clear that Barron Trump is no longer just the quiet kid standing in the background. What exactly did Barron say that silenced the reporter? And how did Melania react to her son's bold move? Stay tuned as we break down the full story, the reactions from both supporters and critics, and what this might mean for Barron's future in the spotlight. You won't want to miss the details of this jaw-dropping moment that left even the harshest critics speechless. The reporter, clearly caught off guard, hesitated for a moment. The smug expression they had worn just seconds earlier faded, replaced by something between shock and discomfort. No one had expected Barron to step in, least of all the journalist who had set the trap. People in the room exchanged glances, sensing that something unusual was unfolding. The cameras, which had mostly been focused on Melania, were now trained on Barron. He wasn't just standing up for his mother, he was making a statement, one that demanded to be heard. For years, Barron had been a mystery to the public. Unlike his older siblings, who often made headlines, he had remained largely in the background. The media rarely saw him speak, and when he did, it was in passing. A polite nod, a quiet thank you, a brief wave. But this was different. There was confidence in his voice, a certainty that made everyone pause. The reporter quickly tried to regain control, pushing forward with another question, this time directed at Barron himself. It was a classic move, when caught off guard, shift the pressure elsewhere. But Barron didn't flinch. Instead, he looked straight at the journalist, his expression steady. A murmur spread through the room. The people in attendance, journalists, photographers, aides, were used to the usual back and forth between politicians and the press. But this wasn't part of the script. This was real, and it was unfolding right in front of them. Somewhere in the crowd, an aide moved forward, likely ready to step in, to put an end to the unexpected moment. But before they could, Melania placed a gentle hand on her son's arm. It was a small gesture, almost imperceptible, but it spoke volumes. She wasn't stopping him. She wasn't pulling him away. Instead, she stood beside him, allowing him to take control of the moment. Outside, the story was already spreading. Social media was buzzing with speculation. People were posting clips, dissecting every word, every reaction. Some praised Barron for his composure, calling him a young man wise beyond his years. Others questioned whether this was the beginning of something bigger. Was he stepping into a more public role? And then, of course, there were those who doubted the sincerity of the moment, claiming it was staged, a calculated move to shift public perception. But inside that room, none of that mattered. What mattered was the tension in the air, the unspoken challenge hanging between Barron and the reporter. Would they try again? Would they double down, or would they back off? The journalist opened their mouth, ready to respond. But before they could say a word, Barron did something no one expected. He took a step forward. The room fell completely silent. Everyone was waiting for what would happen next. Barron's step forward wasn't just physical, it was symbolic. The room seemed to shrink as everyone's attention zeroed in on him. The reporter, now visibly uneasy, tried to maintain their composure, but it was clear they hadn't anticipated this level of confidence from someone they had likely dismissed as inexperienced or naive. Barron's eyes locked onto the reporter's, his expression calm but piercing, and for a brief moment, it felt like the entire room was holding its breath. Meanwhile, Melania stood quietly by her son's side, her face unreadable. Over the years, she had weathered her fair share of public scrutiny, often responding with grace and silence, letting criticism roll off her like water off a duck's back. But seeing her son take the lead, that was new. And while she didn't say a word, the slight nod she gave him spoke volumes. It was as if she was silently acknowledging his strength, giving him the unspoken approval to continue. The reporter finally found their voice, but their tone had shifted. Gone was the smugness from earlier, replaced by a forced politeness. "Barron, do you feel it's appropriate to step into the public eye like this? Are you ready for the kind of scrutiny that comes with speaking out?" It was a loaded question, designed to put him on the defensive, but Barron didn't bite. Instead, he responded with a simple, measured answer. "It's not about being ready. It's about standing up when something isn't right." His words weren't flashy or overly rehearsed, they were direct, and that made them all the more powerful. But this wasn't just about a single exchange between Barron and a reporter. Outside the room, the story was spiraling in multiple directions. News outlets picked up the clip, each spinning it in their own way. Some praised Barron for his courage, framing him as a young man standing up for his family. Others questioned whether this was a strategic move by the Trump family to shift media narratives or even hint at a future political role for Barron. Behind the scenes, political analysts were already speculating. Was this the beginning of Barron Trump stepping into a more public role? Could he be following in his family's footsteps, not just as a public figure, but potentially even in politics? The idea seemed far-fetched to some, given his young age and generally private nature, but others weren't so sure. After all, the Trump family had a history of defying expectations. But while the media buzzed with theories and debates, inside the Trump household, the atmosphere was different. Reports suggested that Donald Trump himself had mixed feelings about the incident. On one hand, he was known for valuing loyalty and strength, both of which Barron had shown in spades. On the other hand, there was a sense that Barron's sudden emergence into the public spotlight could complicate things, especially with the family's complicated relationship with the media. Ivanka and Donald Jr. reportedly had their own takes as well. Ivanka, ever the strategist, saw potential in Barron's growing public presence, while Donald Jr. was said to be more skeptical, wary of how the media might twist Barron's actions over time. Tiffany, often quieter in family matters, was rumored to be supportive, appreciating Barron's desire to defend his mother. But perhaps the most intriguing perspective came from Barron himself. Friends close to the family hinted that he wasn't interested in fame or politics. For him, the moment wasn't about making headlines or crafting a public persona, it was about defending his mother from what he saw as unfair and disrespectful treatment. But whether he liked it or not, the spotlight was now firmly on him. As the days passed, the story refused to die down. Social media continued to dissect the event from every angle, with hashtags like #BarronSpeaks and #TrumpFamilyDrama trending across platforms. Supporters rallied around Barron, calling him a symbol of youthful integrity, while critics questioned whether he was being pushed into the spotlight by his family. But amidst all the noise, one question remained unanswered. Was this a one-time moment of courage? Or was Barron Trump stepping into a role that would change his life, and perhaps the public's perception of the Trump family forever? And just when it seemed like things might settle down, a new twist emerged, one that would pull Barron even deeper into the public eye, whether he was ready for it or not. Just when it seemed like the dust was beginning to settle, a new wave of controversy hit, pulling Barron Trump even deeper into the spotlight. A leaked email from a high-profile journalist surfaced online, suggesting that the initial question aimed at Melania had been pre-planned, an intentional effort to provoke a reaction from the Trump family. The revelation sent shockwaves through the media, raising serious questions about journalistic ethics and whether certain reporters were actively trying to create viral moments at the expense of public figures. The leak ignited a firestorm. Supporters of the Trump family pointed to the email as proof that the media had been targeting them unfairly for years, using cheap tactics to undermine their reputation. Critics of the family, however, argued that the leak was a distraction, a calculated move to shift focus from the real issues at hand. Either way, the story refused to die down, and Barron found himself at the center of a media frenzy that only seemed to grow more intense by the hour. Inside the Trump household, the atmosphere grew more tense. Donald Trump reportedly became increasingly vocal about the situation, seeing the leaked email as an opportunity to strike back at the media. He wanted to make a public statement, perhaps even hold a press conference, using the incident as a rallying point for his supporters. But Melania had other ideas. She believed the best approach was to stay quiet, to let Barron's actions speak for themselves and avoid giving the story more fuel. But Barron? He was caught in the middle. Friends close to the family suggested that he felt torn between wanting to protect his family's reputation and staying true to his own values. He wasn't used to this level of public scrutiny, and while he had handled the initial confrontation with grace, the ongoing attention was something entirely different. He had always been more private, preferring to stay out of the spotlight, but now it felt like he had no choice. The world was watching, waiting to see what he would do next. Adding to the pressure, a new player entered the scene, a former White House insider who claimed to have behind-the-scenes information about the Trump family's reaction to Barron's viral moment. In an exclusive interview with a major news outlet, they hinted at internal conflicts, suggesting that not everyone in the family was happy with Barron's unexpected rise to public attention. The insider implied that some of Barron's older siblings were worried about how his sudden popularity might shift the family dynamics, both personally and politically. The interview set off a fresh wave of speculation. Was there tension brewing within the Trump family? Were they united behind Barron? Or were there deeper rifts forming beneath the surface? The media latched onto the story, dissecting every word, every gesture from the family in recent public appearances. Analysts debated whether this was the beginning of a larger narrative, one that could reshape the Trump family's place in American politics. Meanwhile, Barron remained largely silent, refusing to give interviews or make any public statements beyond that initial moment. But his silence only fueled more curiosity. People wanted to know what he was thinking, how he was handling the pressure. Was he planning to step further into the public eye, or would he retreat, hoping the media storm would eventually pass? As days turned into weeks, the tension continued to build. Rumors swirled that Barron was considering a public statement, maybe even an interview, to address the situation head-on. Some insiders claimed he was being encouraged by family members to clarify his position, to either embrace his newfound public role or firmly step back from it. But others hinted that Barron was contemplating something even bigger, something that could change the public's perception of him forever. And then, just when it seemed like the story might fade, an unexpected invitation arrived. A major national news network reached out to Barron directly, offering him a prime-time interview spot to share his side of the story. It was a high-risk, high-reward opportunity, one that could either cement his place as a thoughtful, independent voice or expose him to even more scrutiny and criticism. The world waited with bated breath to see what Barron would do. Would he accept the invitation and step fully into the public arena? Or would he choose to walk away, leaving the world to wonder about the young man who had, for one brief moment, silenced a reporter and captivated a nation? The answer was coming, and it promised to be nothing short of explosive. Just as the world waited for Barron Trump's decision on the primetime interview, another twist shook the already tense situation. An anonymous source leaked a private video to the media, footage that appeared to show a behind-the-scenes moment from the event where Barron had silenced the reporter. In the video, Barron could be seen talking quietly to Melania just moments before stepping up to confront the journalist. The footage was grainy and the audio muffled, but it was enough to spark a wildfire of news speculation. What exactly had Barron and Melania discussed? Some claimed the video proved that Barron's bold move had been rehearsed, suggesting that the entire exchange was a carefully orchestrated attempt to shift public attention and reframe the Trump family narrative. Others insisted it showed a natural, spontaneous moment between a son and his mother, one where Barron simply decided to act on his own. But the ambiguity of the video left plenty of room for both sides to argue, and soon the media frenzy grew louder than ever. News outlets ran with the story, dissecting every frame of the leaked footage, while social media exploded with theories. Hashtags like #BarronExposed and #ScriptedOrNot began trending, and the debate grew even more heated. Supporters of the Trump family doubled down, defending Barron's actions and accusing the media of trying to smear a teenager for standing up for his mother. Critics, on the other hand, pushed the narrative that this was all part of a bigger strategy, questioning the authenticity of Barron's seemingly spontaneous moment of defiance. But what no one expected was Barron's response, or rather his lack of one. As the media firestorm raged, Barron went completely silent. He didn't issue any statements, didn't post on social media, and didn't respond to the interview invitation. The Trump family, too, remained unusually quiet, offering no clarification about the video or the swirling rumors. This silence only fueled more speculation. Why wasn't Barron addressing the controversy? Was he being advised to stay quiet, or was he struggling with the sudden pressure of being thrust into the national spotlight? Behind closed doors, insiders hinted at growing tension within the Trump family. Some reports suggested that Donald Trump was furious about the leak, convinced it was part of a coordinated effort by political enemies to discredit his family. There were even whispers that legal action was being considered against whoever had released the footage. But others within the family, particularly Melania, were said to be urging a more measured response, hoping the story would eventually die down if they didn't add more fuel to the fire. As if things couldn't get more complicated, another unexpected development hit the headlines. A former White House aide came forward with claims that Barron had been quietly preparing to step into a more public role for months before the event. The aide alleged that Barron had been taking media training sessions and had been advised by close family members on how to handle the press. If true, this revelation would suggest that Barron's viral moment wasn't as spontaneous as it appeared, but was it really that simple? The media latched onto the new claims, and suddenly, the story was no longer just about a teenager defending his mother. It became a larger narrative about the Trump family's influence, their media strategies, and whether Barron was being groomed for a future in politics. The stakes had never been higher, and the public couldn't get enough of the unfolding drama. But amidst all the chaos, one question lingered. What did Barron really want? Was he a young man caught in the middle of his family's political battles, or was he quietly crafting his own path? One that no one, including his own family, had anticipated? The world waited for answers, but Barron's next move remained a mystery. And just when it seemed like the situation couldn't get any more intense, another shocking piece of information surfaced. One that would change everything. Just when the media frenzy seemed to reach its peak, Barron Trump finally broke his silence, but not in the way anyone expected. Instead of accepting the primetime interview or releasing a formal statement, Barron took to social media with a simple, direct message. It wasn't a polished video or a carefully crafted press release. It was a handwritten note, photographed and posted to his newly created account, which read, "I don't need to rehearse standing up for my mom. Think what you want." The post was brief, but its impact was immediate. Within minutes, it went viral, shared and retweeted by millions. The handwritten note, in Barron's unmistakably youthful but confident handwriting, felt raw and authentic in a way that no scripted interview ever could. Supporters celebrated it as proof that Barron was genuine, unfiltered, and unwilling to play by the media's rules. Even some critics had to admit that the simplicity of the message packed more punch than any carefully orchestrated response. But the real twist came just hours after Barron's post. A new leak surfaced, this time, not from a reporter or political insider, but from a tech employee at the news network that had originally invited Barron for the interview. The leak revealed internal emails showing that the network had been planning to use the interview not just as a way to hear Barron's side, but to subtly steer the conversation toward more controversial family topics. The goal was clear. They wanted ratings, and Barron's viral moment was the perfect hook. This revelation flipped the narrative on its head. Suddenly, the media itself became the focus of scrutiny. Accusations of manipulation and unethical practices flooded news outlets, and public trust in the media took another hit. The network scrambled to control the damage, issuing apologies and claiming that the emails were taken out of context, but the damage was done. Barron's simple note, combined with the leaked emails, had exposed a deeper layer of the media machine that few had seen coming. Meanwhile, inside the Trump household, the atmosphere shifted dramatically. Donald Trump, known for his combative stance against the press, saw this as a victory not just for Barron, but for the entire family. Reports suggested he was proud of his son's boldness, even referring to Barron's post as a masterstroke in private conversations. Melania, however, seemed more focused on protecting her son from further media attention. She knew the spotlight was a double-edged sword and worried about the long-term effects of this sudden fame on Barron's life. But just as it seemed like the dust was settling, Barron delivered the final unexpected twist. In a follow-up post, he announced that he was stepping away from the public eye entirely. "This isn't my world," he wrote. "I stood up when I needed to, but I'm not interested in the spotlight. I'm going back to living my life the way I want." The announcement stunned everyone. After all the speculation about his future, whether he'd enter politics, embrace a public role, or become a new face of the Trump family, Barron chose the simplest, most unexpected path of all, stepping away completely. It was a move that no one saw coming, and in many ways it made the biggest statement of all. The media was left scrambling to fill the void, trying to keep the story alive, but without Barron's participation, the headlines gradually faded. Yet his brief foray into the spotlight left a lasting impression. For many, Barron Trump became a symbol of quiet defiance, not just against a reporter, but against an entire system that tried to shape his narrative. In the end, the story wasn't about politics or media strategies. It was about a young man who, in a moment of unexpected courage, stood up for his mother and then walked away from the noise, leaving the world to wonder what might have been if he'd chosen a different path. In the days following Barron Trump's unexpected decision to step away from the public eye, the media cycle began to slow. Without new material or statements, reporters and commentators were forced to move on to other stories. But Barron's brief moment in the spotlight left a mark that wasn't so easily forgotten. His simple, handwritten note and his choice to walk away from fame sparked conversations far beyond politics. People began to reflect on the pressures faced by children of public figures and the often unseen toll that media attention can take on young lives. Within the Trump family, life seemed to return to a quieter rhythm. Melania was reportedly relieved by Barron's decision. Those close to her said she never wanted her son to become a political figure or media personality. She valued privacy above all else and believed that stepping away was the best way to protect Barron's well-being. Donald Trump, while initially proud of his son's bold moment, eventually respected Barron's choice to withdraw, even if it didn't align with his own love for the spotlight. The public, however, continued to discuss Barron's actions long after he faded from view. Supporters praised his integrity, seeing him as someone who stood up for what mattered most, his family, and then refused to be used as a pawn in a larger political game. Even critics had to admit that his quiet exit was unexpected and dignified. It wasn't the kind of dramatic, attention-seeking move many had predicted. Instead, it was a powerful reminder that sometimes the strongest statement is choosing not to play the game at all. As months passed, Barron's name would occasionally resurface in conversations about media ethics and the treatment of public figures' children. His story became an example in discussions about how far the press should go when covering the private lives of those connected to powerful families. The leaked emails from the news network continued to fuel debates about journalistic integrity, with some networks tightening their policies in response to the backlash. For Barron, though, life quietly shifted back to normal, or as normal as it could be for someone in his position. He returned to his studies, focusing on school and spending time with close friends, far from the media glare. Reports suggested that he was happier away from the chaos, content with a life that wasn't defined by public attention. He wasn't interested in politics, fame, or being a symbol for any cause. He just wanted to be himself. Looking back, Barron's moment of standing up to the reporter wasn't just a headline. It became a symbol of something bigger. It was a story about courage, integrity, and the power of choosing one's own path, even when the world is watching. In a society obsessed with fame and public approval, Barron's decision to walk away left a lasting impression. It showed that sometimes, the most powerful moves aren't made in front of cameras but in the quiet choices we make when no one's looking. And so, the story of Barron Trump and the reporter who tried to humiliate his mother came to an unexpected but meaningful close. It wasn't just about politics or media spin. It was about family, standing up for what's right, and knowing when to step back. In the end, Barron reminded everyone that even in the loudest of times, silence can speak volumes.